A black waitress helped an elderly man every morning until his lawyers entered the restaurant accompanied by four bodyguards. Looking specifically for her, the doorbell at Cafe Aurora rang at 8:47 a.m., but it wasn't the familiar sound that made Kayla stop what she was doing. It was the absolute silence that followed. 5 men in black suits had just entered the small restaurant, and the tension in the air was so thick that even the sizzling of the frying pan stopped. Kayla Santos, 29, was cleaning a table when she looked up and saw something she would never forget. For huge men, clearly security guards, flanked a gray-haired gentleman carrying an expensive leather briefcase. His eyes scanned the room until they found hers. "Are you Miss Kayla Santos?" asked the man with the briefcase, walking directly toward her. Kayla's heart raced. Problems with the law. Her mother's debts. She nodded timidly, unable to find her voice. The whole restaurant was now watching. Rosa in the kitchen, her boss when behind the counter, the few morning customers. "My name is Dr. Hamilton, attorney for the Whitmore family. I need to speak with you about Mr. Robert Whitmore." Kayla felt the floor shake beneath her feet. Robert, the quiet old man at table 7 who had been coming to the cafe every day for 2 years, who always arrived at 7:30 a.m., ordered black coffee and whole wheat toast, and never said more than a whispered good morning. The 78-year-old man for whom she had developed a strange affection. Is he okay? She managed to ask. Dr. Hamilton bowed his head slightly. "Mr. Whitmore passed away last night at home in his sleep. He left very specific instructions about you." Kayla's legs buckled. Robert was dead. The old man she helped cut his toast because his hands trembled, whom she always served with an extra smile because she sensed his loneliness, who left a tip of exactly $2 every day, more than he could afford, but which she accepted because she knew it was important to him. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her eyes welling up, "but I don't understand why he left something for you," Dr. Hamilton interrupted, opening the folder. Mr. Whitmore was, let's say, a very private person about his money situation. "You need to come with us now to the office." Wim approached, nervous. "Kayla, what's going on?" She didn't do anything wrong. Dr. Hamilton smiled for the first time. On the contrary, she did everything right. Kayla looked around the small cafe where she had worked for 4 years. The same place where she had faced looks of scorn for being the only black employee, where she had heard whispered comments about people like her serving food. The place where Robert had appeared one day and, unlike everyone else, treated her with the respect she deserved. As she untied her apron with trembling hands, Kayla had no idea that the next few minutes would change her life in ways she could never have imagined in her wildest dreams. Because Robert Whitmore wasn't just a lonely old man, and his family was about to discover that underestimating a black waitress would be the biggest mistake of their rich lives. Asterisk, what if one act of kindness unlocked a fortune no one saw coming? Stick around, you won't believe the twist. Asterisk, if this story of kindness and unexpected secrets touched your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to Black Man Notebook to find out how a simple gesture of humanity would turn into the most satisfying payback against the deep-rooted bias of a millionaire family. Dr. Hamilton's office occupied 3 floors of a building in the city's money center, marble, dark wood, and a wide view that cost more than Kayla's yearly pay. She felt tiny walking through the quiet halls, her worn sneakers squeaking on the shiny floor. "This way, Miss Santos," said Dr. Hamilton, guiding her to a meeting room where 3 people were already waiting. And Kayla knew immediately that these were the people who would hate her most in the world. Seated in leather chairs that looked like thrones were Victoria Whitmore, a 50-year-old woman with a kind of cold beauty that comes from decades of privilege. Her son Bradley, 28, wearing a suit that cost more than Kayla's car. And a young blonde woman she assumed was the daughter-in-law. Victoria barely looked up when Kayla entered. Bradley examined her from head to toe with an expression of barely hidden disgust. "Is this the person?" he asked, as if Kayla were some kind of strange bug. Bradley, please, murmured Dr. Hamilton, but Kayla noticed that even he seemed uneasy with her being there. Have a seat, instructed the lawyer, pointing to an isolated chair across the table. Kayla sat down, trying to ignore how she felt like a suspect in a courtroom. Dr. Hamilton opened a thick folder. Mr. Robert Whitmore's will was filed 3 months ago when he was told he had pancreatic cancer. He chose not to tell his family about the illness. Victoria raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. Typical of Dad, always dramatic until the end. He left specific instructions on how the reading should be done. Hamilton continued. First, for the family, the Beacon Hill mansion, the 2 summer homes, the art collection worth $12 million, and a $50 million trust fund to be split equally between Victoria and Bradley. Kayla felt the breath leave her. $50 million. It was more money than she could even picture. Bradley visibly relaxed. Well, at least the old man didn't completely lose his mind. However, Dr. Hamilton continued, and Kayla noticed a subtle change in his tone. There is a second part of the will that refers to the family business. Victoria frowned. What second part? Hamilton turned the page. The Whitmore Holdings restaurant chain, including 47 spots in 6 states, the supply center, and all related business assets. He paused, looking directly at Kayla. Are left in full to Miss Kayla Santos? The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria turned pale as a sheet. Bradley literally choked. This is a mistake, Victoria said, her voice controlled but with a wild edge. It has to be a mistake. There is no mistake, Hamilton replied calmly. In addition, there is a $15 million fund set aside just for restaurant fixes and growth, also under Miss Santos's full control. Bradley exploded. That's silly. She's a waitress. She didn't even know my grandfather. For the first time since she had arrived, Kayla found her voice. I did know Robert every day for the last 2 years. Robert, Victoria laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. You called him by his first name, as if you were friends. We were friends, Kayla said firmly. He told me about his favorite books, about how he missed his wife. About how what? Bradley interrupted, leaning forward like a hunter. About how easy it would be to trick a lonely old man. About how much money he had. The accusation hit Kayla like a slap. I didn't even know he had money. I thought he was just a retired guy who ... double quotes please, Victoria said with scorn. A black waitress at a cheap cafe doesn't get $80 million by luck. You knew exactly what you were doing. Dr. Hamilton slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Mr. Whitmore's instructions were clear. There is also a personal letter for Miss Santos. He handed Kayla a sealed envelope. With trembling hands, she opened it and began to read aloud. My dear Kayla, if you are reading this, then my time has come to an end. For 2 years, you were the only person who treated me like a real person, not a bank account. You didn't know that I owned the restaurant chain where you worked. You didn't know that I watched every kind act you showed, not only to me, but to all the customers. Victoria let out a snort of doubt. But Kayla continued, in the last months of my life, I pretended to need help cutting my toast to test if your kindness was real or planned. You never asked anything personal, never treated me as a source of favors. When the young homeless man came into the cafe and you paid for his meal from your own pocket, you didn't know I was watching. When you defended Rosa in the kitchen from that rude customer's harassment, you didn't know it reached my ears. Bradley and Victoria exchanged increasingly worried looks. My family will get my personal wealth, but my businesses will go to someone who gets that feeding people is about respect, not just money. Kayla, you have a heart that this family lost long ago. Use these tools to show the world that kindness and success can go together. Imagine inheriting an empire from a stranger's smile. But what if the real enemies were family? You have to hear this next. Kayla finished reading with tears in her eyes. The silence in the room was thick as concrete. Finally, Victoria stood up abruptly. We're going to fight this. We're going to prove she tricked him. Good luck, Dr. Hamilton said coldly. Mr. Whitmore spent 3 months noting every talk with Miss Santos. He hired private eyes to check her character. He has security video, witnesses, full records. This will is solid against any fight. Bradley slammed his fist on the table. This is crazy. She doesn't know how to run a company. Mr. Whitmore picked an advice team to guide her, Hamilton replied. And he made it clear that any try at sabotage by the family would mean losing their full inheritance, too. Victoria looked at Kayla with pure hate. You may have fooled a sick old man, but you won't last a week in the business world. We're going to ruin you. Kayla stood up slowly, feeling something new growing inside her. It wasn't fear, but a strong will she didn't know she had. You can try. As the Whitmore family stormed out of the room, leaving threats in the air, Kayla remained seated, holding Robert's letter. They saw her as an outsider, an unfit taker. What they didn't know was that Kayla Santos had grown up in a neighborhood where every day was a fight to survive, where she had learned that judging someone by looks was the first step to their own. The next 2 weeks were like being thrown into the ocean when you barely know how to swim. Kayla found herself the owner of a restaurant empire she had no idea how to run. While the Whitmores worked hard to make her life hell, the first meeting at Whitmore Holdings headquarters was a planned shame. Bradley had called all the regional managers, 15 middle-aged white men in fancy suits with looks of barely hidden scorn. Kayla entered the conference room in her best dress, bought at a discount store, and right away felt like an outsider in enemy land. Everyone, meet our new owner, Bradley said with a poisonous smile. Kayla Santos, who comes to us straight from. Where did you work again? Oh, yes, serving coffee. The laughter was quiet but clear. Kayla sat at the head of the table, the spot that was hers by right, and tried to ignore the side glances between the managers. Well, Kayla, Bradley went on, flipping through a folder. As the new owner, I bet you have some wild ideas for fixing our spots, maybe serving stronger coffee. More giggles. Kayla took a deep breath and decided she wouldn't let herself be scared. Actually, I do have some notes. Bradley's smile grew wide like a hunter seeing his prey step into the trap. Please tell us. I visited 7 restaurants in the chain over the last 10 days. Kayla began, her voice getting stronger. In 5 of them, I saw that Black and Latino workers are stuck in the kitchen and cleaning, while front service is mostly white. In 3 spots, I saw managers treating workers of color way different. The quiet in the room shifted. The smiles started to fade. Also, Kayla went on, the menus are the same in areas with totally different people. The downtown restaurant charges $18 for a burger that costs $12 in the suburbs. Even though the run costs are almost the same, Bradley tried to cut in, but Kayla didn't stop. And there's more. Online reviews show steady complaints about service that match the people in those areas. Is it a fluke that the worst reviews come from neighborhoods where you put the least trained workers? One of the managers, a man named Peterson, snorted. With all respect, miss, running restaurants isn't about social stuff. It's about gain. You're right, Mr. Peterson, Kayla said calmly. And talking of gain, your numbers in the Southern District dropped 23% in the last year. By chance, that's where you did that staff cut plan that fired older, more skilled workers. Peterson turned pale. How did she know those exact numbers? The truth was that Kayla had spent the past 2 weeks studying like crazy. Dr. Hamilton had given her all the money reports, and she had found something that surprised her. She had a natural skill for checking data. Years of handling her family's tight budget, counting tips, and managing shifts at the cafe had built a math sense she didn't even know she had. But more key, she had found a surprise friend. Linda Kuhn had been the company's money chief for 12 years, a 45-year-old Asian-American woman who had been skipped for raises despite her perfect numbers. When Kayla asked to see the reports, Linda was at first cool and pro. But something changed when Kayla asked questions that went deeper. Why don't you put more into training? Kayla had asked on her second office visit. Turnover costs eat 15% of net gain. Linda stopped typing and looked at her for the first time with real interest. You really read the reports. I read them 3 times, Kayla admitted. And some things don't add up. That's how Linda started showing Kayla the data no one else saw. The mismatches, the odd patterns, the numbers that didn't fit. And that's how Kayla learned that the Whitmore damage went way past mean meetings. Bradley was actively messing up work, moving good workers to bad spots, canceling deals with cheap suppliers, faking higher costs at some restaurants. He was trying to make the company look shaky and badly run to push a forced sale. He thinks you'll quit in a few weeks, Linda explained one night after work, showing sheets on the computer. The plan is to make a work crisis, then offer to fix it by buying back for a small price. And Victoria knows this. She's handling the law side. They already have lawyers hunting holes in the will. Kayla felt a mix of anger and will growing in her. And you, why help me? Linda laughed bitterly. Because I saw Bradley waste millions on new ideas that anyone with sense knew would fail. Because Victoria called me Daddy's helper to my face when I questioned a shady deal, and because she paused, Robert Whitmore hired me when no one else would give an Asian woman a shot in company money work. He believed in people others judged low. It was then that Kayla realized she wasn't alone. Robert had left more than cash and restaurants. He had left a group of loyal folks who had been pushed aside or ignored by the family. In the days after, Kayla started meeting these people. Marcus Williams, the black manager of the top-gaining restaurant who had been moved to the worst spot soon after starting. Sophia Morales, a skilled chef who had been stopped from changing the menu because she didn't get the customers. James Park, a digital ad expert who had suggested drives for mixed groups and was laughed at in meetings. They all shared one thing. They were able, committed, and steadily wrecked by the Whitmores. Robert talked to us, Marcus said over a quiet lunch. Not official, but he knew. He asked questions. He watched. I think he was noting everything. Noting what? How the family treated workers, how they threw away cash, how they were wrecking the company he built from inside. It was Sophia who gave the biggest hint. There's a safe in his office. It was never opened after his death. The lawyer said only you can open it. That night, Kayla was alone in Robert's old office on the top floor. The safe was hidden behind a painting, the code Dr. Hamilton had given her in a sealed note. Inside, she found something that made her heart pound. Years of quiet recordings, talks, meetings, phone calls. Robert had carefully noted every bad choice, every biased remark, every sign of the family's bad running. There was more. Private checks into Bradley and Victoria's personal cash, reports on fake companies, hidden accounts, and what looked like a tricky money washing plan using the restaurants as cover. My God, Kayla whispered, flipping through papers that showed how millions had been stolen over years. Her phone buzzed. A message from Bradley. Hope you're enjoying playing boss. Next week, we have a meeting with buyers interested in buying. I'm sure they'll make an offer, even you can get. Kayla smiled for the first time in days. They really thought she was just a scared waitress playing adult games. They had no idea they had just started a war with someone who now had enough proof to wreck not just their names, but their freedom. As she neatly sorted the proof Robert had left, Kayla felt something growing in her. She was no longer the scared girl who left the law office weeks ago. She was a woman who finally got that Robert had not only given her a company, he had given her the tools to prove that judging someone by background was the first step to self-ruin. Bradley's investor meeting would be in 5 days. He planned to show a company in mess, run by an unfit person, ready to sell cheap. What he didn't know was that Kayla had spent the last weeks not just learning business, but planning how to fully break the life of anyone who tried to take what was hers. Because when you grow up lasting in a world that always doubts your skill, you learn a truth that rich folks will never get. The gap between looking strong and being really risky is that the second comes with proof, friends, and a plan so well made that when it's shown, it's too late for any defense. The meeting with possible buyers was set for 10 a.m. in the top lounge on the 30th floor. Bradley had picked the spot on purpose, a room with a wide city view, an imported marble table, and a feel of power that he thought would scare any out-of-place waitress. Kayla got there 5 minutes early, carrying a plain briefcase, with only Linda Kuhn by her side. The 5 investors were already seated, middle-aged white men in fancy suits with the sharp looks of folks there for a fast, big deal. "Gentlemen," Bradley said with his best smile, "let me bring in our current owner, Kayla Santos. As you see, she is a bit lost with the company's duties." Victoria, sharp in her designer suit, added with fake pity, "Poor thing, she really tried. But running a restaurant empire isn't like pouring coffee, is it, dear?" Kayla sat calmly at the head of the table, the true spot. "Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Before we talk sale, I think you should know some facts about the company you're thinking of buying." Bradley laughed. "Kayla, please. You gentlemen aren't here for ideas from a worker. You're here for real deals." "You're right, Bradley," Kayla agreed, opening her briefcase. "Real deals need full truth. For example, did you know that in the last 18 months, $2.3 million just vanished from the money reports?" Bradley's smile slipped a bit. "I don't know what you're saying." Kayla passed out copies of papers to the investors, moves to hidden accounts, 2 high deals with fake companies, phony bills, all signed by Bradley Whitmore, Mr. Henderson. The top investor looked through the papers, his interest clear. "These numbers don't match the reports we got, because the reports you got were faked," Kayla said. Linda hooked a laptop to the room screen. "Dr. Hamilton, can you join, please?" The door opened, and the lawyer came in with a box of proof. Victoria turned white at once. "What the hell is this?" Bradley burst, jumping up. "Justice," Kayla said simply. The first recording showed on the screen. It was Bradley's clear voice on a phone call. "I need sales in the Southern District to look bad. Cancel deals with cheap suppliers and hire our pals who charge triple. When the waitress sees she's losing, she's sell fast." The room went dead quiet. Victoria tried to stand, but Dr. Hamilton softly stopped her. "Please stay seated. There's way more." The second recording showed Victoria telling money counters to fake reports. The third showed open racist talks about Kayla. The fourth noted how they paid suppliers to send bad goods on purpose to restaurants after Robert's death. "My God," one investor muttered. "You were wrecking your own company to push a fake sale." Bradley was sweating hard now. That was out of place. "She's trying to set us up." "Place," Kayla said with a cold smile. "What place excuses this?" Office security clip played, showing Bradley wrecking key papers 3 days after Robert's death. His voice was clear. "Burn it all. The little black girl can't find the real numbers." Victoria finally burst. "You recorded private talks." "That's against the law." Actually, Dr. Hamilton cut in. "All these recordings were made by Robert Whitmore on his own land and in his personal office, spots where he had full right to record. He suspected for years you were stealing from him." Henderson looked at the other investors. "Gentlemen, I think we have no want for a company in money crime." "Wait," Bradley yelled in panic. "She's lying. She's a trickster." "A what?" "Bradley," Kayla asked calmly. "Go on. In front of these fine gentlemen, tell me just what you think I am." Bradley opened and shut his mouth like a fish on land, knowing any words would just prove the bias the recordings already showed. Kayla stood up smoothly. "Gentlemen, as you see, Whitmore Holdings is well run. The issue was never running. It was inside wrecking. Now that's fixed. Our growth plan for the next 5 years shows a 300% rise in gain." Linda showed the true numbers. Without the Whitmore's tricks, the company was rock solid and gaining. "So," Kayla went on, "I'm no longer up for selling, but I have another idea." She smiled, and for the first time, it was a smile that made Bradley pull back on instinct. "I'm buying your share of the inheritance. I can offer $5 million for each of your shares. $5 million, Victoria cried. Our inheritance is worth $50 million. Was worth, Dr. Hamilton fixed before the crime proof just shown. With court cases starting, a federal check for money washing, and the public show coming, your part in the company isn't even worth that. Kayla opened a sealed note. Gentlemen, investors, you might want to know I already sent copies of all this proof to the FBI, the IRS, and the New York Times. The story hits tomorrow morning. Bradley's face went red as a tomato. You can't do this to us. We're family. Family, Kayla laughed, but there was no fun in it. Family doesn't try to wreck the company the head built. Family doesn't steal, and family sure doesn't use words like little black girl when they think no one's hearing. Victoria tried one last play. Her polite mask fell full. You may have these recordings, but no one will take a person like you running a real company. You don't fit in this world. Kayla looked around at the investors, who now watched her with clear respect. At Linda, who smiled proud. At Dr. Hamilton, who nodded good. You're right, Victoria. I don't fit your world. I fit a world where heart counts more than bloodline, where skill beats ties, and treating people with respect isn't extra. She paused, enjoying the moment. That's just why I'll do great where you fell short. Henderson stood, offering his hand to Kayla. Miss Santos, it would be an honor to deal with someone of your honesty. When you're set to grow, come see us. As the investors said hi to Kayla and fully ignored the Whitmores, Bradley and Victoria grabbed their things in shamed quiet. Their rich lives, built on pride and bias, had fallen in one morning. At the door, Victoria turned last time. This won't hold. You're going to flop, and when you do, no one will help you. Kayla smiled calm. Victoria, you've already given me the best gift. You judged me so low that you gave me time and room to show what I can really do. Thank you for that. Alone in the room after all left, Kayla looked out the wide window at the city she could now claim. Robert had left her more than a company. He had left a lesson on turning bias into drive for win. But Kayla's tale was far from done, because when you strip power from folks who always had it all, they don't quit easy. And what the Whitmores didn't know was their public shame was just starting. And it would be way worse than any deal meeting could guess. 6 months later, Kayla was on the cover of Forbes magazine as Rising Businesswoman of the Year. Whitmore Holdings had become the top-gaining restaurant chain in the area, with 23 new spots and a diversity plan copied nationwide. Bradley worked as a sales lead at a store after getting fired from 3 jobs for bad attitude. Victoria sold insurance by phone, her mansion loaned out to pay lawyers. At the big opening of the new downtown restaurant, Kayla cut the ribbon next to a framed photo of Robert. Thank you for showing me kindness is strength, she whispered. Marcus, now area boss, smiled. He knew how to choose people. The best payback isn't wrecking those who judge you low. It's building something so big they spend their days wondering how they were so blind. Kayla showed that heart beats privilege. If this story moved you, subscribe to Black Man Notebook for more tales that prove respect always wins over bias.